Good morning everybody, welcome back to IndyCar on the 14th of July. Hope you're having a peaceful Sunday this morning. Weather is quite pleasant. I was out enjoying that exact same weather yesterday up at Aberfoyle. Lovely day for walking. Anyway, so to the news. Well, to do a quick roundup of the situation for you as I see it with my analysis. As you all know, the Labour Party has been smeared with an anti-Semitism accusation, if you like. This has been going on for months now, mostly in the Tory-owned press. Jeremy Corbyn, when he was elected leader of the Labour Party, by a massive landslide incidentally, mostly I suspect by young members of Labour who, and older members who were disaffected and fed up with the middle of the road Blairite sort of vision of a kind of centrist, almost red Tory party. And we're fed up with that and elected Corbyn. So Corbyn is the reluctant hero, the man taken from the back benches and thrust into the limelight. The man who never thought that he would be a leader of anything and was happy, to go to his protest meetings and to be on C&D marches and so on. Now thrust into the limelight. And the man who is, strangely enough, in England at least, the most feared by the Conservative Party, to the point where the fear was so bad that Corbyn might end up actually winning a general election, that they have attempted to nobble him. And the easiest way to nobble the Labour Party was to label it anti-Semite. Because the Labour Party and the left in England generally has historically had a very pro-Palestinian and anti-Israeli bias, because, well, people see what's happening in Gaza and they rightly get upset about it and criticise the Israeli government. That criticism has led to some people on the very fringes of the left starting to think that all Jewish people are like this and that everybody who is Jewish behaves the same way, which we know is utter rubbish, because many prominent Jews, particularly in the United States, have come out in the media and said that this anti-Semitic row in the United Kingdom is rubbish, that there are many Jews in the United Kingdom who don't believe that the Labour Party is anti-Semitic. Anyway, to cut a long story short, the problem is that the Labour Party has been forced through these allegations onto the back foot to defend themselves, and they have become mired in a series of almost manufactured scandals where the continuing pressure from the right-wing press has demanded that they take action. And so in trying to root out these so-called anti-Semites, and maybe there are some anti-Semites on the fringes of the Labour Party, but in doing so they have involved some of the leadership, the senior members of the Labour Party, in the process of rooting out whatever anti-Semitism there might be. And I think it's probably something like 0.01% of their membership. But anyway, the upshot of this is some of the Labour Party's senior officials got fed up with this and were being criticised for not having a witch hunt. And so now they are actually suing the Labour Party. So the Labour Party has members suing itself and tying itself up in ever tighter knots over this entire almost entirely manufactured anti-Semitic row. The Labour Party could quite easily have dealt with its anti-Semites in its own way had it reacted a lot quicker or had mechanisms in place for kicking them out. But it didn't do that. So the problems for the Labour Party continue. This is obviously something which the Tory party has designed. They want Labour to be tied up in knots. They want it to be seen to be anti-Semitic, and they want Jeremy Corbyn sidelined. They've even put out fake stories that Jeremy Corbyn has some kind of medical condition that makes him frail or weak and unable to govern the country. So they're really desperate for Corbyn to stay on the sidelines. And in a similar way, they did the same kind of stitch-up, as we know, with Alex Salmond, where he has been accused of historical sexual abuse, in fact sexual attacks, in the past 10 years previously when he was the First Minister of Scotland. Now, the two women who were making the allegations against Salmond kept silent for 10 years until a British civil servant enabled them and encouraged them to come out and make these allegations. And to do so, she had to persuade Nicola Sturgeon to change the rules at Holyrood so that whistleblowers like that could make sexual allegations against former MSPs or current MSPs even 10 years after the fact, and they would be investigated. All theoretically, in principle, a great idea that everybody should be able to speak out about unwanted sexual advances. Perfect. So Nicola Sturgeon signs this new legislation into law, and as soon as that happens, virtually before the ink is dry, the two women step out of the closet and instantly accuse Alex Salmond of sexual assault, attempted rape, blah blah blah. Okay, all 10 years in the past, all hearsay evidence, nothing that can be easily proved or disproved, and what do you know it, Alex Salmond is neutralised in an instant and sidelined for about 2 years now, because his trial is apparently going to come up next year, well after the whole issue of Brexit and the potential second Scottish independence referendum are history. So again, the British state doing an excellent job of sidelining the opposition. So they've got rid of Corbyn, they've moved Salmond out of the way, and they now have a clear run at the no-deal Brexit and the coup that they're planning to neutralise all chances of Scotland voting for independence. So the situation that we're in now is that we are now cruising towards this no-deal Brexit, with both Philip Hammond and David Davis coming out in the press this morning, putting their aura in basically. Hammond, to his credit, saying that no-deal Brexit is a catastrophe. It will cost over £90 billion just for the disaster that will happen immediately upon no-deal Brexit. David Davis is wading in, saying that Whitehall, that is the civil service in London, never imagined for a moment that no-deal Brexit would actually happen. And they didn't take it seriously, he claims. Although the British government had to make it clear, he says, this is David Davis, that in its negotiations that they were prepared to walk away with no deal. And therefore they had to make these arrangements. But according to Davis, the Whitehall civil servants, these are the senior men and women who actually make the arrangements for the country to deal with something like this. He claims that they did not imagine for a moment that no-deal Brexit would happen. As far as they were concerned, this was a paper exercise and nothing more. And now it is turning into a real exercise. And according to Philip Hammond this morning, if there is a no-deal Brexit, then the United Kingdom will not be able to control the outcome of that. They won't be able to control what the other 27 nations actually do after we've exited. For example, he quoted this as an example this morning, that although the British government, after a no-deal Brexit, would be able to control the rate and the type of trade that was flowing in through Calais, they would not be able to do the same or have the same control. Coming in through Dover, I beg your pardon. They would be able to control what was coming through Dover on their side of the channel. They would not be able to control what happened in Calais. And according to Hammond this morning, it is possible that the French government could decide to slow things down at the channel, to introduce more paperwork, to slow down the export of British goods onto the continent. Now, the French have basically rubbished this idea and said they would never do that because closing down the port of Calais would be suicide. And this is true. The French really need that traffic to flow through Calais smoothly. However, it is a fact that the 27 other nations will hold the whip hand in a no-deal Brexit, because Britain will be isolated. And whatever it wants to do with Europe after that will be done on European terms. 27 against 1, and it's not good odds when it comes to doing any kind of deal for trade. So all of that lies ahead. And in the meantime, we appear in Scotland to have a government which is asleep at the wheel. There have been complaints recently, particularly by even SNP members as well as members of the wider independence movement, that the Scottish government and the SNP in particular seem to be ruling out a plan B for their independence referendum. So if the continued stonewalling by the British government goes on, the Section 30 order is not given, and the whole vote is postponed well into 2020 or 2021, it would be too late. And without a plan B for another route to independence, it would be impossible for us to both have the vote and also to save our parliament before it is sidelined after the no-deal Brexit. Now, we've been through this this risk factor before. Now, we also know that there was an attempt made by Chris McElhinney and what's his name? Is it Angus McNeill? I believe MSP, an MSP and an SNP councillor put the idea of having the whole business of independence decided by election, and putting that onto the agenda for the SNP conference in this autumn, so that it would be discussed and hopefully there would be a plan B. This was rejected out of hand last week by the SNP organisers. The organisers of the conference have basically said no, they're not going to discuss that, which leaves everybody wondering what on earth is going on. We've got an SNP government which appears to be treading water at the moment. We have Nicola Sturgeon very quiet at the moment about anything at all, and we have no plan B. We are still being told that we have to wait till 2020 to have a referendum, which we know will be far too late, because we all know that as soon as no deal Brexit happens, the first thing that Boris Johnson, and for that matter Jeremy Hunt, if he were to miraculously come from behind to become PM, the first thing they will do is suspend or stop devolution, because to them, to the Tories, devolution was an experiment that they never supported and that they have never been comfortable with and that they still hate and they want to get rid of. So we are all wondering, me included, what the Scottish Government is about. Why are things so quiet? Why are they not acting? And it would appear, at least on the surface, that they are biding their time, which is fair enough. We've got to bide our time until Boris Johnson or Jeremy Hunt finally makes it to become the unelected leader of the country. Now, whoever ends up winning that race, the outcome for Scots at least will be identical. It will be the same. Bear in mind that no matter what happens with Brexit, the American government has now cut the United Kingdom adrift. The special relationship is dead, because no matter what anybody thinks about the recent revelations, that our British ambassador in Washington has basically been criticising Donald Trump and accusing his administration of being inept and incompetent and without a clear plan. And also being unable, now it appears today, he's also claiming that the Trump administration, by abandoning the nuclear deal with Iran, basically just did that to spite Obama, who actually initiated this plan. But also in doing that, they have thrown the United Kingdom to the wolves, because the United Kingdom is left as the only country with any kind of influence in Iran, even though it's a bit of a toxic influence. And the United Kingdom has now been left having to send another ship into the Gulf. Now they've got two. Wow. Two whole ships in the Gulf. That's the armada from the Great British Navy that's being sent to protect these oil tankers, right? So we have the British government now on its own, with Americans suggesting that there should be a new alliance of some kind, a new coalition, which they're not going to lead, incidentally. The Americans have no interest in starting a war, apparently. Trump has just pulled out of this deal because he didn't like Obama. So the ambassador for the United Kingdom, when he made his comments about Trump doing this to spite Obama, also said that the Trump administration had no clear idea what they would do about Iran and its nuclear capabilities after they walked away from the deal. Now, most people are saying, well, what's the point of walking away from the deal? What does that actually mean? Well, America had this deal with Iran and involved the European Union countries as well. And the conditions were simple, that as long as Iran did not continue to enrich uranium beyond a certain point, that the world, the West, the Americans and the Europeans would lift all their trade sanctions against Iran. Iran would get the flow of goods and services in and out like any normal country, and their isolation would be over. Except that Trump pulling out of that completely threw that whole deal into disarray. It's now meaningless. The American government can now maintain sanctions from outside this agreement, whereas the Europeans are stuck in the middle, wanting to lift the sanctions and wanting to try to continue with the deal, but no longer being able to lift the sanctions on their own, because the Americans are standing outside keeping the sanctions in place. And as I say, leaving Britain caught in the middle, trying to negotiate some kind of, what would you say, a scaling back of these incidents in the Gulf that have been primarily caused by Donald Trump's walking away from this deal. It's a very messy picture, but what it tells me is that after the no-deal Brexit, any hopes of some kind of special relationship, special trade deal with the United States are gone. The United States is no longer run by a sane political administration. It's being run by a moody, thin-skinned man-child who takes hump and likes to make spiteful moves which involve entire countries and continents in his tiffs with people, that preceded him. It's ridiculous. So I think that the world has descended into a kind of Alice in Wonderland, down the rabbit hole, where anything can and will happen as long as Donald Trump is there and as long as Brexit continues. In the meantime, I would say to everybody who's still waiting for the Scottish Government to do something, not to panic, because there is still 3 months to go before the Brexit deadline. Not only is there 3 months to go, but we still haven't got a new Prime Minister. And when we do have a new Prime Minister, we've then also got to wait for Westminster Parliament to start up again. It's going to take ages, as we all know. And then they've got to waffle their way through a whole load of arguments about Brexit, wasting all that time. We now know there is no time left to negotiate, even if the Europeans would allow it. We are heading to a no-deal Brexit, but the only way that we can be certain of that is when Boris Johnson or Jeremy Hunt takes control of the country. And at that point, when no-deal Brexit is inevitable, when it's no longer able to be able, is when the Scottish Government needs to act. What they will do, I don't know. But for my money, I would be shocked and amazed if the Scottish Government, with the level of intelligent, highly experienced, well-educated, legal people. I mean, Nicola Sturgeon is a lawyer. She specialises in this stuff. For her to make a stupendous gaffe that would cause the closure of Holyrood would be almost unthinkable. So we have to keep the faith. We have to keep believing. Remember, this is the darkest period. This is the period of lowest morale in Scotland at the moment. We're ready to go. We've got the army primed up. The sword is sharpened. We're standing at the battlefield, ready to do battle. And yet there's no enemy in sight, and our leadership is having a cup of tea in the tent somewhere. So we have to wait. I think, like in Angus MacFadyen's recent movie about Robert the Bruce, there is a period in history where great things are about to happen, but the person who is leading that campaign, the person who has started it and continues it, is at their lowest point. And the whole country is waiting and holding its breath to do something. And they're not there. If you ever get a chance to watch it, you will understand exactly what I mean. Bruce was at his lowest. He was mortally injured. He nearly died. He recovered. He had severe doubts. He had the weight of guilt for the thousands of people who had been killed following his cause, and the reaction of the people who saved him in the movie. You will see that. And then that he recovers, but the faith in him is still there. So when he is ready to come back, his people are waiting for him, saying, "Where have you been? We've been ready for ages." That's where we're at here. Okay, we're ready. When Nicola said, we'll go. But we just have to wait for the moment. We don't know what's being planned. We're being told there's no plan B. We're being told we have to wait until it's too late to vote. You make your own judgment. Do you think that the Scottish Government would actually do that? Or are they waiting for something else? I think that there are a lot of things that we are not being told, and we'll never be told them until well after we have won our independence, and then we will find out how it was really won. At the moment, we're not privy to those things, and we can't be. For us to reveal the strategies of our own government right at this moment would be to gift the opposition a chance to undermine it. At the moment, the British government is undermining itself. It's destroying the Labour Party. The Tory Party has torn itself apart. The Liberal Democrats are somewhere out in the wilderness, who knows where. Brexit's party is running rampant but has no MPs. And so it goes on. The chaos of Brexit spreads like a disease at the moment. We don't need to do anything to weaken our enemy at the present time. We just need to maintain our strength and hold our breath for a bit longer. But we're nearly there, okay? So have a nice Sunday. Don't panic. Everything will be fine. We just need to keep the faith and keep calm. Trust. Trust your leaders. If you don't trust your leaders, you're not going to win anything, okay? You have to trust them. They have a plan. I'm sure of it. I don't know what it is, but I would be absolutely astounded if there is not a real plan somewhere for what we're going to be doing. We just don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I mean, if we do end up having to vote in 2020, it might be because the SNP knows something. They know that Brexit's going to be delayed. They know the European Union is going to slow things down. We don't know. But I feel confident of two things. One is that the European Union is not going to abandon us this time. The European Union had kept its office open in Edinburgh. And if it thought for 1 minute that the SNP government was going to fail or that Holyrood was going to close, they wouldn't have kept that office open. I don't believe they would have done so. I think it is a sign from the European Union, it's a gesture of good faith, and we need to keep the faith ourselves. I'll see you all later. Have a great day. Bye-bye for now.